know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
Welcome to Punk Lotter Pod. I am your co-host, Justin Hensley.
And I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we assign our guests a year, and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album for us to talk about from that year. Today, we are joined by Angelo of the band Magazine Beach. They are a DC-based band, self-described emo surfcore. They put out an excellent EP last year called Friendless Summer, and it's available on cassette right now from Knife Punch Records. I highly recommend you check it out because it's a great EP. Today, what are we talking about?
We are talking about the year 1990, and the album is Unfun by Jawbreaker. I guess in this time period, it would be more like, yeah! Classic Blake voice. Unfun by Jawbreaker. It is legendary record, legendary band. We haven't really talked about Jawbreaker in depth on this show, and they're a huge band for you and I. So this was a pretty cool conversation to have.
Yeah, it's a really good conversation. We have all the social medias, all that good stuff: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We have a Patreon where every week there is some bonus audio. We took a 2-week break due to some family stuff, but we are back. No breaks in the foreseeable future unless something comes up But yeah, right now over there on the Patreon, we've got something new for you to correspond with this episode. And for $1, you get all the bonus audio, $1 a month. And or you could just pay $1 one time, download them all, and then unsubscribe. Do what you like.
Yeah. We will hopefully have some interesting stuff going up on the Patreon soon. There's one we really need to get to. Also, you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Lucky Numbers, at punklotterpod.substack.com. Like Justin said, we took a couple weeks off, so I've got some catching up to do over there, but hopefully I'll get back to publishing those regularly soon.
Yeah. And as usual, enjoy the show. And, we have an email, punklotterpod@gmail.com, voicemail 202-688-PUNK. We got too many things, so...
Yeah. Classic Hensley Brothers fashion, overextending ourselves with far too many social media accounts.
But, that'll be it, and enjoy the show.
I don't mind if you tell me that we need to start over. I'll be fine if you tell me that we need to be cool. I don't mind if you wanna come over and get high, 'cause I never really know what to do. And the morning
chest when you wanna play true.
I'll be fine if you tell me that we need to be.
For the listeners' sake, introduce yourself to the listeners and let them know your name and what you play in the band and all that good stuff.
Cool. My name is Angelo, and I play guitar and I sing in the band Magazine Beach. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Off the bat, I wanted to mention that I actually heard your show or your band for the first time on the podcast Up the Blunks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
If you listen to our show and don't listen to Up the Blunks, what are you doing? Go listen to Akil and Kevin's show. It's the best podcast on the internet, I think.
I might have to agree with that. We did like a show once. Kevin Titt does this thing called Punk House Comedy in DC, where it's like comedy shows, and they always have a band like open and close out the comedy sets. And we like did that with him one night, and he was just like the most amazing hype man to have like announce you before you play a set of all time. I can say that with confidence. Yeah.
That's awesome, because we had Akil on the show last year, and first of all, Ended is amazing, and but yeah, he's so funny too. So we're hoping we can get Kevin one day too. I think that'd be really good to have him on.
Definitely.
So Magazine Beach is a self-described emo surfcore band.
Oh yeah.
When did you all come together?
Pretty recently-ish. It was in 2019. That was when I graduated college and kind of was like, I want to do like music stuff, you know, but I didn't really like have any idea like who I wanted to like be in a band with or anything. And I had like some songs and stuff, but I went straight for like a rogue Craigslist posting. And that's how me, Jesse, and Eric met. And like they were the only people that responded, and it just happened to be like a drummer and a bass player. It was perfect. And I was like, so like we were all like, who are these people gonna be? Like convinced we were gonna get murdered. But yeah, we ended up, you know, really getting along, did some jams, felt good, and yeah, we're all buddies now. Yeah, so that was like summer of 2019. And then Will was like, who is our second guitarist, was in high school, went to high school with Jesse, our drummer. So they've known each other forever. And then Will jumped on, and Casey also recently joined the band, I guess, early 2020. And yeah, so it's kind of still evolving and stuff, you know, but yeah, started in 2019.
Did you have a bunch of stuff written beforehand, or was it just like, I want to start a band, let's start a band?
I had like, so I put out like a demo on Bandcamp where I'd written like 4 songs and just put it up under like the band name Magazine Beach. And that was the stuff like I posted with the Craigslist ad to try to entice potential bandmates. Yeah. So I did this demo and I had like those 4 songs written, and that's it. And basically those were like the only 4 songs I'd ever written like up until that point. And yeah, we started with that, and stuff kind of rolled pretty quickly. Yeah,
that's cool.
So I had a little bit.
Do you know if they actually listened to them, or did they just do the typical just show up and jam? I've had plenty of people do that.
I think they have definitely listened, or did definitely listen to it, because I don't know, it was very much like we were all into the same music, and I think that's what kind of made it like actually happen, you know, in the first place, is like we were just like corresponding for a little bit. So yeah, you know, I wasn't about to like just meet up with dudes who just wanted to like jam on some psych rock for 3 hours, you know. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's like some deep secret of the band that they never actually listen to my demos. Who knows?
They just have amazing ears, like they just
yeah.
What were some of those similar interests that you had as far as bands?
I think like, you know, that's like, I could go all day about like what bands we like, but I think kind of like the bigger ones, you know, that we first started talking about, when we were kind of just like putting stuff out, you know, we talked a lot about like liking Joyce Manor, liking Weezer. We're all like pretty into Weezer, for better or worse. Yeah, just kind of like general like punk and emo and pop punk, indie, like all the stuff in the general sphere of like alternative music. Yeah, we just really vibed on that together. But yeah, those were definitely a few of the big ones.
I could tell the Weezer influence because like when I listen to the new EP and even the first one, like I hear a little bit of like the Super Weeks or even like Roswell Kid, how they have a bit of that Weezer influence in their music too. So like I definitely see a musical kinship there. Like
it's all like that like power pop kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like how I always like saw our band, or at least for a while. It's like a power pop band, which I think like Roswell Kid and like Weezer are like the best two examples of that,
Sure. You released Friendless Summer last year, and it was one of the best EPs of 2020.
Thank you. That's super nice of you to say.
It's just got a physical release on a split cassette with Sally Hatchet on Knife Punch Records.
Yeah.
Sally Hatchet is Casey's project, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So that's what Casey was doing when we met her, and I mean, I'm sure, yeah, she's still doing it, but that was something she put out like kind of as she was joining the band, and we were all like, we love it. So we were like, hey, we have another side to this cassette. Like, I think, this EP deserves a release. So yeah, we did it. And they're like very different, very different sounding, but I think they work together.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely very different, but I don't know, complementary. They do different things. That's one of the things I love about like cassette as a format is like with vinyl, you've kind of got to be real specific with what you want to do. Like you have the time restriction of what's the maximum you can have is like 45 minutes on an LP.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so expensive, and you got to make sure you have everything just right. But then with like a cassette, you can put 90 minutes or something crazy on a cassette.
It's like so ridiculously long, like way more than I will ever use.
There's like, yeah, I know tons of bands who do things like, well, we just put the EP on both sides just because, we had the room. Or like there's another, our friends in Bedtime Magic who've been on the show, they did their side goes, and it's so short that then they just play it backwards from there. So it's just in reverse on the rest of the side of the tape.
I like that. I wish I was like creative enough to do anything like that. Like we did a cassette release for our first EP. And those were literally like 2-hour tapes, and the EP is like 10 minutes long. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, I guess like if you have a copy of that, you can, make a mixtape or something with the rest of the room. Yeah.
You could add the other EP, and then you could add the Sally Hatchet on there, and then you have plenty.
We'll dub each release for you for free if you buy a cassette. It's like a membership. Yeah.
So that's coming out on Knife Punch. How'd you get working with them?
Honestly, just through like being on like emo Twitter, I guess, and just like talking about bands and stuff. Knife Punch was definitely like one of the first people to like listen to us at all, I think, and just like find our band and be into our band. So yeah, they just kind of like met online, as a lot of people do nowadays. They like the stuff we were putting out, and they have some great bands on their roster. And we kind of decided we wanted to do a cassette release, and the guy we went through with our last run isn't really doing it anymore. So we just asked them like, hey, if you want to help us out with a cassette run, and they did, and the rest is rock and roll history.
Well, that's cool. I mean, it's really cool that they're doing some cool stuff right now. So
for sure,
good company to be in.
You guys have checked out the Home Is Where record?
I've not. I don't think I have.
That was their most recent release. This band called Home Is Where. The album's called I Became Birds, I think. Yeah, I Became Birds. It's really good. Check it out. Yeah. Definitely. And it started a lot of album versus EP discourse because it's very short, which I'm always super happy to jump on.
What my personal rule is if it has 10 tracks, it's an album. If it has less than that, 10 tracks or 30 minutes. That's my rule.
I feel like you just kind of have to accept that there's no rules.
True.
You know, you just gotta. It's all about the context.
I'm calling this 2-hour release an EP because I want to.
The real extended play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The DC area is kind of blowing up. There's a lot of great records that came out of that area last year. Bacchae, Celebration Summer, Bad Moves. Elise from Oceanators, originally from DC, so you know you can kind of claim her.
Yeah, you got Bartiz, Strange too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Origami Angel, obviously, who just announced their second album, which I'm just so stoked for. But yeah, there's really no shortage of very sick bands around here, that's for sure.
I guess pre-pandemic, did you have a lot of chances to interact with the DC scene? Since you weren't really around very long before that, too.
Yeah, we weren't around like super long, I guess, before that happened. Like we hadn't been a band for like, oh man, wait, have we not been a band for a year before the pandemic even happened? That's crazy. Okay. I'd have to check my math on that. But anyway, we played like a ton of shows. We did like at least one a week. A lot of the time we would just do like 2 a week. Yeah. So I feel like we got pretty like well acquainted with all the happenings in the DC scene pretty quick. Yeah, just simply from playing a ton of shows. But yeah, definitely got like a good experience with it and missing it tremendously now.
Yeah, I definitely, before the pandemic, I was always like I would go to a lot of shows, but at the same time, like I'd get there and be like, I can't wait for this to be over because I'm old.
I mean, yeah, I feel that. And it's like, I have regret about it every single day now.
Right.
Just living with that.
Now I'm like, I'm going to go to as many all-day festivals as I possibly can.
Yeah. 7-band bill? Say less.
We are definitely gonna have a glut of mini fests once shows resume. People are gonna be so eager to play and have shows again.
No doubt.
We're gonna have shows that start at 3:00 and don't end until 2.
When's there going to be a Punk Lotto Fest?
Oh man,
And
the organization
got to
skills.
a venue into letting us put that together.
I now I'm like trying to imagine like what that would even look like because we kind of run the like spectrum of like types of bands too on our show.
Definitely.
I mean, I think that works. I think mixed bills are good. I think it's more exciting to have a variety of bands instead of like 5 hardcore bands that all play the same style of hardcore. You know,
I love being the pop punk band at the hardcore show. Nothing like it.
Yeah, mixed bills are definitely preferable because I've definitely done that. Yeah, the all day hardcore fest thing. It's not quite as fun as a little bit of everything.
You guys could do like 2 dates, a North Carolina and a Phoenix date. Bands have 2 days to make it there.
yeah.
And then all our like podcast vlogger, artist friends could just come and hang out.
Perfect.
What's in store for the future of Magazine Beach? Magic Beach. That's a different band, I'm sure.
That definitely could be our name. That might be a better name than Magazine Beach. Yeah, I mean, obviously stuff's super up in the air, but we're still like going. We kind of just have recently been talking about, for the first time in a while, like regular practices again and stuff like that. Just kind of with vaccines and stuff happening, a little more okay with the idea of practicing together. So that's the biggest plan we have on the horizon right now. Yeah, it's the pandemic, man. It just like makes things tough. Made things tough. But
hey, I mean, that's the responsible approach. You didn't practice any during that time. You did the right things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like don't regret that or anything. Yeah, it was good. Feeling very anxious like to get back to it, so that's good instead of like getting burnt out. Yeah, we've been writing songs very, very, very slowly and, sending demos in our group chat and whatnot. So we're still going, just not doing a lot right now. Yeah.
Might as well take it easy. There's plenty of time.
For sure.
Well, awesome. I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Yeah,
And,
we're hoping that the next thing we do is going to be an album.
that'd be awesome.
But also, I think if we were going to do something like that, we'd probably put like a considerable amount of time into it, like a lot more than we have with just like putting out EPs, because those are very much just like we'll write a song and then record it and then be like, cool. But yeah, I think we'll probably just spend a lot of time working on an album and go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes the most sense. So, like, EPs are definitely, like, where you see a band grow. That tends to be, like, a band figuring out their sound or their style or what they're going to do on the next release. So, yeah, why not take your time?
For sure.
Well, let's get into the rest of the show. So, for this show, we assigned you the year 1990.
Yes.
And before we get into the album you actually picked, let's talk about a couple other ones that came out in that year. What did you almost pick for us to talk about?
Okay, well, I need to start by saying that this experience has taught me that, in my personal opinion, 1990 was like the most uneventful year in music history. Like, it was truly just like you can pick any other year between like 1965 and 2021 where there's like an album that was like significant to my life in some way, but that album does not exist in the year 1990 anywhere. Yeah, so it's a weird year, first of all. But I think the other big one that stood out as something I could have picked was Repeater, Fugazi. Like, I thought that was the obvious one, but I have mixed feelings about Fugazi, man. I just yeah. I mean, I don't have any like hot takes about Fugazi. Don't get too excited, you know. It's just like, you know, they're not like my favorite band ever, but I feel like I really should, you know, be super into them. Just like DC, I guess. I don't know, Ian MacKaye, but yeah. And I feel like they have like such a dedicated following, and there's like so much lore behind the band that like I just could not talk about them for an hour with other people listening, you know. It's like I just feel like so out of my league there. Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense. Like, they have a lot of material. Some of it's very different from others. Some I guess the ones that I don't love are probably the ones that even like the hardcore fans aren't necessarily the biggest fan of. But Repeater, it was a big deal. So it's definitely probably the most landmark punk record of that year.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that for sure.
Because it's full of like a lot of early releases by bands who would go on to do bigger things, and then like a lot of late era material from other bands. So it is an odd time period.
It's like literally, and the thing is, I swear, like my favorite records were released like 1989 and 1991. But like I was like, oh, 1990, piece of cake. Couldn't find anything. It's like I know Pavement released like an EP that year, and I think The Cure released an EP too. But those were like, you know, I didn't have any like connection to those releases, I guess. I've never really like listened to them extensively. And then there was also the band Half Japanese put out a record that year. Do you guys know them?
I've seen their name like a million times on these lists. I've honestly never listened to them though.
they're like a super weird, like terrible band, like terrible on purpose kind of thing. It's like good terrible. It's kind of like it's like Daniel Johnston-y kind of, you know, except a little more loud and crazy. But I know Kurt Cobain was really into them, apparently. But they're worth linking into. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, I thought about picking them because they were like another one of those bands where it's like, oh, you know, I like this band. This is a record that came out that year. But I just didn't feel like I could talk about them, you know, coherently for any extended period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan, what would you have picked if you were the guest on this here show?
I mean, the record that we picked, that we are talking about, is probably the record I would pick.
Yeah.
Excellent choice.
I would probably Repeater would definitely be. It's definitely one of the ones I'm most familiar with off of this list. But if I wanted to pick something where I maybe had to do a little more work and a little more research and wanted to learn something, I would maybe go with maybe like the Poison Idea record, because that's a pretty big deal as far as hardcore goes. And that's a band that I don't know a lot about that I would like to know more about. So other than that, I mean, like Justin said, there's like 39 Smooth, you know, that's not the Green Day record, you know, and there's a Neurosis record that's really not the Neurosis record.
No.
I don't know. It is a very unusual year, and it is a year that it's the year I was born, so I've looked at this chart many times, feeling like I need to like more records from this year because they're the same age as me, but there's not a lot that grabs me.
I feel that way about 86, the year I was born. Like, I'm like, what? That year sucked. There wasn't anything good. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just odd timing.
Yeah. I just saw one, though, I would definitely pick. Black Sheets of Rain by Bob Mould.
That would be my pick.
I don't know that.
It's the second Bob Mould solo record. So, like, Workbook was before. That's like a mostly acoustic record, too. So, like, Black Sheets of Rain is very much like the first post Husker Du album he did that, like, sounds kind of like Husker Du. So,
yeah.
It's a fucking awesome record. Kind of underrated one, I think.
It's more like Husker Du than Sugar, though it's closer to Sugar in terms of like when it came out, because it's definitely much darker, much more intense. Whereas Sugar was like all pop songs, just super distorted guitars.
Would you guys hate me if I told you I've never really listened to Husker Du?
I mean, it took me a while to get into them, probably later than Dylan did even. I think, Dylan, you were way into them more than I was before I finally like dove into them. So, I mean, it's not... I mean, have you heard any? I assume you've heard some.
Yeah. I'm like I'm certain that I could get really into that band, but it's just one of those things where I'm like, I'm not ready to go down this hole yet, you know? And I've just always been putting it off.
They're a band that I understand if you hear them and you go, I'm not interested. Because their sound is divisive. Bob Mould's guitar tone is particularly divisive, and the recording quality of a lot of their material is just kind of spotty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Zen Arcade's probably like the beginning point, but if you want something glossier, I'd go with maybe like Flip Your Wig or even Candy Apple Grey. Yeah, play around with it whenever you... I feel like they're one of those bands that when you listen to them and like it clicks for you, you're like the next Magazine Beach record is gonna like be like Husker Du worship. Like
that's like what I'm worried about. It's like when I like, you know, any kind of like a band like Husker Du where they have like obviously like a huge legacy, you know, I don't just like go and put on an album like one time and then just like forget about it. You know, I'll sit there and I'll listen to it, you know, 10 times in a row and then like go back through like their catalog front to back. Like I'll get into it, you know, and I'm just not ready to go down that hole yet with them.
You have to dedicate a year of studying them.
Exactly.
like it's a course in college.
That's like genuinely one of my favorite things to do is just like pick a band and spend like way too long only listening to them and just try to figure it out.
I mean, that's how some bands that I consider my favorites today, like that's how I did it. Like Teenage Fan Club is a band that like I always knew they were a good band and I'd like that one record they had. And so then I was just like, I'm just going to dig into everything they have and make them work for me. And it did. And now they're like, what, top 5 favorite bands. So yeah, it's definitely a process that I follow with too.
I feel like that kind of process, like if you do that with anyone, they're going to be your favorite band, you know, just listening to them that much.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, just getting so deep into a catalog, it'll do it for you. Oh man, now I'm just wanting to listen to some Husker Du.
We can make a playlist for you if you need one.
That would actually be cool. I would be super down for that.
I'm sure, Dylan, you might even have one already.
I could throw one together pretty quickly.
We'll have to do that. Maybe we'll
essential.
include that. We'll include that in the show notes too, if Dylan remembers to do this after we record it.
Excellent.
Your Husker homework.
Yeah.
Here's us talking about a Jawbreaker record. Anyway, here are the best Husker Du songs.
Right.
Well, you mentioned them. Let's talk about them. So we gave you 1990, and you picked Jawbreaker's Unfun. First thing I usually ask is, what made you pick this record? But you kind of answered it, but we'll let you speak for yourself exactly. What made you pick Unfun?
I think Jawbreaker was my favorite band on like the list of records that I saw released. And that being said, I haven't listened to a ton of Jawbreaker. Like I know some Jawbreaker songs super well, but like they're not one of those bands where I've just like sat and like listened to everything. So like a lot of the songs even on this album, like I didn't, know particularly well. So I saw it and I was like, Jawbreaker? Like, yeah, I'll deep listen this album. Like, I'll listen to only this for the next month or however long it was till you guys reached out about this. Yeah. So it's kind of just like, I like this band. Like, I want to know this album better. And that's what I did.
Nice. I'll run through some stats on the record. For those unfamiliar with Jawbreaker, they formed in 1986 while the band was attending NYU. They later relocated to Los Angeles. This is their debut full-length album and was released on Shredder Records. The personnel on this record is Blake Schwarzenbach on guitar and vocals, Chris Bauermeister on bass, and Adam Fowler on drums. Produced by the band and Richard Andrews, who also engineered the album, and it was recorded at Radio Tokyo in Venice, California. Yeah, the first Jawbreaker. They're a legendary band. I feel like this record is legendary by just being a Jawbreaker record, most likely. Do you have a favorite Jawbreaker record? I know you said you're not super deep in their discography, but is there one that like you already know pretty well?
I knew Bivouac and 24 Hour Revenge Therapy. Like I know those records like fairly well. I like Bivouac a lot. That's like probably if I was going to put on a Jawbreaker record, that's what I'd put on. But now that I'm like so acquainted with Unfun, I'd say I'd listen to this one over any of the others. Yeah, and I've never listened to Dear You. I haven't got around to that. And I know all this shit surrounding that record, but yeah, I can get into that later.
Yeah, for sure. Dylan and we've talked about Jawbreaker before. We've never done like a deep dive on one of their records. I'm a 24 Hour Revenge Therapy fan. I think that's kind of like the consensus agreed upon best record. There are like hardcore fans though who are like, no, Bivouac's the best, or Dear You. I mean, so like,
of course,
they have 4 albums. You can pick whichever one you want. And I'd probably say Dear You is probably my second favorite. Honestly, Unfun's the one I come to the least. primarily because of the B-side, but we can get into that a little bit later. But Dylan, where does Unfun stand for you as far as Jawbreaker records?
It's kind of tied for second with Dear You.
Oh.
Like, 24-hour revenge therapy, like Justin said, it's kind of like, it's the one most people agree on, so I think it's the one that is considered the best, which each one of their records are unique enough that I can completely understand why anyone would say any one of them is their favorite. Like, they did different things on each. I mean, Unfun and Bivouac are probably the closest together, but yeah, like 24-hour is my favorite. It's just, they're my favorite songs. I think they all sound really good together, like the way they play together on that record. It was recorded mostly well. I think they re-recorded all of the Steve Albini stuff. Maybe not all of it. But yeah, Dear You is the slick one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got some really great songs that I love, but it's also got some of my least favorite Jawbreaker songs.
Highs and the lows.
But Unfun has always been one of their records that I can enjoy really consistently from beginning to end. Like, I know Justin said the B-side is weaker, but I don't know. Maybe I just spent a lot of time with this record shortly after getting into Jawbreaker. I think that's probably the biggest part of it for me. I'm very, very familiar with all of these songs.
When did you guys like get into Jawbreaker? Like, when's your first memory of just like listening to Jawbreaker, if you could place it?
I want to say it was probably 2008 or 2009, right as I was going into college, or maybe over the summer after my freshman year of college is when I really started listening to them and kind of digging into their discography. So probably 2009, I would say firmly.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with you. We had a friend who kind of introduced us to them. Like, they were one of those bands that you were like, you knew the name, but unless like somebody was like, you got to listen to this band. Like, you have to, you know? So it took a little bit of like pushing in that direction. But yeah, that's probably about when it was for me too.
Yeah. It's funny to think about Jawbreaker being a band that I got into they're that big name band that everyone talks about all the time, and they have this huge legacy like Fugazi. Like, I got into Fugazi because people talked about them in like hushed tones, like, oh, Fugazi's so important. Whereas Jawbreaker I got into through a friend, and then kind of discovered later, like, oh, everyone knows all these Jawbreaker records. Like, this band is actually a huge deal for everyone.
Yeah, we were definitely late to the game. We also had this weird backwards, like, falling into punk as far as like our growth musically. We were metal kids before we were punk kids, so like, you know, it's a delayed reaction as far as.
I feel that I can relate to that, like, to a certain extent. Yeah. I mean, I didn't listen to Jawbreaker until probably a little over a year ago, like, ever. And like you said, they were one of those bands where you just hear the name like constantly, but you'll never just like listen to them. And I think what actually like made me listen to them is I watched the Jawbreaker documentary, and that's probably the lamest way to like first like listen to Jawbreaker. But yeah, that's how it happened. And they were one of those bands, like, people had like literally told me for years, like, you're gonna love this band, like, this is the band that you will like, and I just wouldn't do it. And I think one of like the first thing I think of when I hear Jawbreaker is our other guitarist Will. I remember the day where I like first listened to Jawbreaker, and I like came into practice, and I was like, yo, like, do you guys listen to Jawbreaker? Like, this shit's sick. And like, people have been always like telling me to check them out, and I never did. And then Will says something like, really? Because people tell me I need to stop listening to Jawbreaker.
You need to listen to something else.
Yeah. So I definitely like, I wish I got into them earlier. That's all I was going to say about it.
about our beginnings with Jawbreaker is a pretty good way to talk about the beginning of Jawbreaker. Prior to this record, they had released the Whack and Blight EP, as well as the 7-inch single for Busy. There's a demo or two out there prior as well, which I believe one of the songs on here, Down, is on the demo. And Busy is on this record too. It's a re-recorded version. Though weirdly, that version was recorded in 1989 by itself, while the rest of the record was recorded in like January, February of 90. So that's why like
Weird.
it sounds completely different recording wise for the rest of the record. So you said earlier that you thought it was it kind of became the one that you probably would put on first. So I take it that you actually like this record.
I do have some pretty mixed feelings about this record, but I feel like I really did like force myself to like love it a little bit, because listening to this record just like start to finish is kind of like rough, you know? I feel like it's just like got such a weird like flow to it, and it just doesn't seem like, you know, there's any reason for the tracks to be in the order that they're in. But as the second I like decided to just click shuffle on the album is like when I was like, oh, this is kind of sick. And then from there I could listen to it all the way through. But it was very much just like the way it's organized just fucked me up immensely. Sorry, can I swear on here?
Oh yeah. Sure.
Okay.
I'll
Fuck
tell my
yeah.
mom not to listen to this episode.
Cool.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is my major note for this album. We've said on the show before, sequencing is crucial when it comes to the flow of a record. And I for the longest time wouldn't get into this record the way I would the later albums, because it's so top heavy with strong songs that the back half I get bored and just like change it. Or like, you know, this to me is like one of those records, if you have the vinyl, you throw it on, you listen to the A-side, and you never flip it, you just put it back in the sleeve.
Honestly, Jawbreaker would have been the biggest band in the world if they'd let me organize the track list of this album. That's all I'm saying.
I feel like even if you just swapped like 2 songs, you could probably fix some of the problems with the order.
If Want was not the first song, it would be an entirely different record. Like such a different record.
Yeah, because Want is so strong. Personally, well, maybe you're not a big fan of Want. Are you a Want fan, or are you?
Oh, I love it.
Okay,
That song is like, I'd say that song is one of those songs where you're just like, yeah, that song couldn't be any better. Like, that's a perfect song. You know, like for what it is, it's exceptional. And the rest of the album is not that. And the rest of the album is like great in its own way, but you can't just like start off with this like just like pop punk masterpiece, you know, and then just go into like just completely other directions, I guess, because it just like fucks. Like that should be like the payoff for making it through like what I can't think of a song I didn't like on that album, but anyway, it should be like in the middle, you know, kind of like a refresher. You know, you get the pop song and then you can move on to like their less, you know, the more punk or like emo core kind of stuff. It just seems so like out of place, throws the whole flow off for me. That should have been like a strong middle song.
They definitely, it's definitely the strong. I mean, I think most people agree. Want's probably the strongest song on the whole album. I mean, there's definitely people who are like, no, Seethruskin, or I don't know that many people are like, Fine Day is better than those two, but it's very different.
I'll go on record and say that Busy is the best song on the album.
It's one of the, you know, I'm more of a Want and Seethruskin fan than a Busy fan, but yeah, it's definitely like a high point for the album as a whole. Yeah, which is so funny they chose that '89 recording session for that one. I listened to the 7-inch version too, just because it's included as a bonus track on the remastered version that's on Spotify, and they definitely beefed it up for the album.
Yeah, I think both sound great, honestly. That song, that's probably my favorite Jawbreaker song now. Like, it's, very cool. Like, I love the way the guitars sound. And you know what? I actually think I might have been listening to the 7-inch version of that more, because I noticed that the drums just sound so different than the rest of the album does, and was really into that. But yeah, that's a good song.
I'm glad you mentioned the drums because like Adam's drumming on this record is so good. Like just those fills and those floor toms.
Yeah, Adam and Chris together on this record really outshine Blake. Blake wasn't. I mean, I think that Blake had some really, really cool guitar parts on this record, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the songs that don't stand out as much because of like maybe they lack a singable hook, but they have. I feel like all of them have like a killer riff, and Blake is not. You don't think about Blake as being like a riff guy. You think of him because he's kind of the one of the poet laureates of punk. You credit him more as a great lyricist, but his riffs are really, really cool, really inventive and noisy. But yeah, Adam and Chris you could just play their parts with no guitars and it would still be super fun to listen to. So many great, memorable bass lines on this record.
I mean, the record starts with the Want bass line.
Right. Like, the best bass line ever written.
Dude,
it's like the waiting room.
This whole like interview, I'm going to be talking about specifically the bass line in that song, but also just the song One. Like, can't get over it. I can't believe they did that. Yeah, they really just did that. And yeah, not even my favorite song, but still. Yeah, the bass is crazy. There's like some seriously cool bass playing, and the drums very good all the way through. The one thing I hate is I really don't like the way the kick sounds on this album. And I know I'm just being nitpicky, and it's super like obnoxious, to listen to this great like work of art, just like seminal 1990 punk album and just be like, yeah, I don't like the kick drum. I really hope people don't think I'm an asshole for saying that, but we're here to talk about the fucking record. So.
The kick drum was very noticeable to me on this listen. I don't think I've ever really paid much attention to it specifically, but listening to it today, I was like, man, what is going on? Like not a good mic placement, just not. It's all. It's just that boxy kind of sound.
Literally. It's like all I can hear when I'm if I like put that record on and then just kind of like zone out and I'm not like really paying attention, like I just start only listening to the kick.
And it's mixed really loud.
And I wonder too, because this is probably the remastered version. I mean, yeah, it is the remastered version, so like that's what he fixed it to. Like
that was the best they could do.
Yeah. It's like they were like, yeah, this mic placement on these toms is amazing. I can't believe how good this sound. Oh shit, we forgot the kick.
Yeah,
I do love he does it a lot. I think in most Jawbreaker records where he does that, like he hits the cymbal and like silences it. Does that like hit and
yeah.
He does it really prominently on one of the songs on here. It's which one is it? I wrote it down specifically too.
I wish I like took some notes, like physical notes on these songs. So I'm just
Imaginary War. That's the one.
Yeah, that song's got like definitely, and that's like the coolest drumming on this record for me. That's like where you really like, if you weren't listening to the drumming before, like you're listening to it now. Yeah,
it stands out. I mean, it's a slower track, so that's like it helps it stand out on its own.
Yeah,
and it is a song that I was like, man, they have 3 4-minute tracks on side A. Like that's a bunch of long songs on one side of a record, but they work. Like none of them are bad. And I'm really glad that none of the ones on the B side were 4 minutes long, because those would be the ones that would be the hardest to get through. Maybe Drone. Drone has a little bit.
We don't need to talk about Drone.
It's the weirdest one, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's
Yeah,
got
that's all
that
just-
riff though.
Yeah.
It's got a cool riff. It's like, it's the sound. I like feel so bad that I keep on just saying bad things about this record. I really do like this record. Yeah, but that's the song where I'll like, if I'm not paying attention to it, I like it. But if I'm actually like just going through and like listening to this record, or I'll like put on that song, I'm just no way. Doesn't do it for me.
It's real noisy, but I guess they were going. It is technically the album ender, so like I could see why you'd be like you would put that at the end, because it has like trailing off sort of thing that it does.
It's got a sound clip in it, right? Is that the
Yeah.
one where he's like, "I want what I want," or is that one of the bonus tracks?
I don't know.
Because
I
there's
couldn't even
Lawn
told you
and,
that was the
and
last
Crane.
song.
The bonus tracks are
Lawn
Lawn,
is the
Crane, and
first,
I5,
Yeah,
and Busy 7-inch mix. I think it's got a sample in it. I think that's one of the ones that I guess kind of like formed the skeleton of that, like the longer. No, there's a one earlier track, doesn't there, that has like a sample too. Is it Imaginary War? No. Fine Day. Fine Day's got a sample on the outro.
okay, and then Incomplete opens up with the
Yeah,
Voicemail.
voicemail.
that shit's cool. I love it. I feel like this album just exists in such a weird like time period, you know, where it's like it's not quite like an emo record, and it's not quite a pop punk record, but it's also not quite a punk record. You know, it's just not anything except unfun.
Yeah, it's from a time period where I guess hardcore was probably more prominent in like the punk scene at this point. But then there was still like Bad Religion was a big deal at this point.
Yeah, I mean, SoCal, Fat Wreck, pop punk was definitely significant
Mm-hmm.
at this time. I mean, yeah, the Bay Area is starting to build up.
Yeah, Sam I Am released their first album this same year too, and it's another one that's like it's kind of emo, but it's not. Like they're very much akin to Jawbreaker in their sound, because I guess technically emo by this point was still this, Rev Summer sound,
Yeah, this was like prime emo core time. Yeah, which is like I feel like in any other context you would listen to this and say it's like either, depending on your personal opinion, you'd either say it's like a punk record or a pop punk record. But like within the context of 1990s or 1990, I feel like it's more an emo core record than anything else.
Yeah,
which is
for sure.
just super weird listening to it now, because just all the different directions all those genres went.
Because it's definitely very pop centric songwriting.
Yeah.
Like Want is catchy. Fine Day is kind of more like an emo track, I guess. It's got a lot of parts to it. But like the faster songs definitely come across as more just like punk and pop punk, especially the beat.
Yeah. I just like talking about Busy again. That like the riff in Busy is like so like emo core to me.
It's funny. I was looking at the Rate Your Music page for this album, and they have the individual track ratings, and Busy is the highest rated song by the users. It has like a 4.7.
That is insanely high for Rate Your Music.
It really is for the Punishers on Rate Your Music.
Oh my god.
Especially for a punk record.
Yeah.
It's
so funny because it's just like, Busy. That's the popular choice. I was surprised by that.
I
Just
do
'cause-
think. Sorry, go ahead.
I would just assume that Want would have been like the highest rated, but
It's too mainstream
yeah.
for Rate Your Music. I feel like though, if I was going to describe this record to someone, I would truly. This is one of the records where I would just say like it's a punk record. Like just listen to it.
Yeah.
Is Busy one of the songs they play for their reunions? Because they don't really play much off Unfun. I do not remember. I have to look at the setlist.fm.
Did they only do like the one reunion, or did they just like reunite?
They're like kind of back, right? Like it's been 2 years, 2018, 2019. They did like a handful of shows. They did like the Riot Fest. Riot Fest was the big one.
Yeah.
And then they played like Fest the following year. So
I was gonna mention this earlier, but the like first episode of your podcast that I listened to was the one with the Big Easy, and like I was just listening to that, to prepare like for this, and you guys were talking about Jawbreaker, and I was like, oh hell yeah! But yeah, they also played like an unannounced show in Brooklyn or something, right?
Yeah.
That was in that podcast.
It was
like right before the Riot Fest thing.
Yeah, it was like a prep show. Like we got the show coming up, so we want to make sure we sound good live type thing.
Yeah.
Like it sold out like instantaneously too. Yeah, that would have been so much fun to be in that room.
They did that in they played in what do you call it? The venue in Oakland.
Gilman?
Yeah, they did like kind of a last minute Gilman show shortly before the more recent reunions. I want to say they did maybe one other like surprise, like
maybe one in Olympia
somewhere else. Yeah,
because that's where Chris hangs out now. Yeah, I was just trying to remember if they play anything off of this record. I think they do play Want occasionally, but it's not like on every show. And Busy might be the other one that they play. It's even from them, they're like it's not their favorite, which I understand.
Blake needs to go on Rate Your Music, and he needs to read what everyone has to say about Busy, because it's a good song, Blake.
I know a lot of the songs, a lot of their older songs they can't play anymore because Blake just can't do it vocally. He'll hurt himself. Just with his polyp surgery and in his he's definitely got a much more limited range.
What a sellout.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what people call they've been calling them sellouts for 15, almost 20 years.
Yeah, right. I just was not going to go through this episode without using the word sellout. So.
Yeah, they're definitely the band that, like, one of the bands that was lobbed at the hardest. Like, I can't believe they sold out and went to, what's that label? DGC? Yeah. Like, what? I don't even know that label.
These guys can pay their rent now?
Fuck that.
Fuck them.
They were homeless before. That's what we want.
I'm so, like, conflicted about that kind of side of Jawbreaker, because, most of me is truly, like, okay, they were doing this band for a while, they wanted to make money. Like, it's okay. They wanted to, like, survive. Right. They're not bad people for that. And then I'm also like, dude, they literally said they would never sign to a major. What the fuck? Like, who does that? Like, I would
say you're not going to do it.
Exactly. I would have been pissed too.
People should have seen it coming. They went on tour with Nirvana,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was gonna happen.
They got a little taste.
I mean,
if
fucking, Green Day gets signed, of course, Jawbreakers would be like, what the fuck? Let's do it too.
It is funny who got those accusations. Like, who did that stick to and have like a bad reputation for? Like Jawbreaker, there's definitely people who have still not forgiven them for that. But like, no one gave a shit that Green Day got signed. And like, Green Day getting signed to a major, I mean, I guess I can't say that. I'm sure there's some Gilman Oakland punk who's just like, to this day is like, fuck them. But like, no one cared at large. And it was a good thing that Green Day got signed to a major label, because how many punk kids did they inspire? Like, how many people did they introduce to punk rock by being a major label band?
Did anybody yell at Sam I Am for signing to Atlantic? Or like, I could see people yelling at Jawbox for signing to Atlantic because they were a Discord band, and that's, got its own set of rules.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like most of those people have heard the stories of like what happened with that deal, and when you listen to that record that they made for a major label, they clearly had no intention of making a major label record. They were just like, yeah, we'll take your money.
Love it.
Whereas when you listen to Dear You go, okay, there's a couple songs here that sound suspiciously like they were written for the label. Like, I don't know why Blake's singing about high school girl getting picked up on a motorcycle.
Dude, see, I always thought that like there was a big Green Day backlash. I mean, like, I think it's less noticeable than like the Jawbreaker one, because like, most of the time when people are talking about Jawbreaker, like obviously it comes up, like that's how the band ended, but like Green Day just kept going on forever. So it's like, it's not like people are like hung up on it, because if you didn't fuck with Green Day that back then, you just like don't talk about it anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's been long enough that it's just like, yeah, I don't know.
I guess it's one of those outrages that's been lost to time. And I mean, Green Day, they reignited that with American Idiot. So
yeah, that's true. Because there was even that, like when that record came out, there was like a backlash for being like, oh, they sold out even more.
Yeah.
The major label pop punk band went even more pop punk.
And on a political record too. That's just so funny. They went to the mall. That's the difference.
Yeah. Even though they were absolutely in the mall.
Right.
Green Day, but mall.
You could buy Green Day t-shirts at Hot Topic in 1998. Or when did Hot Topic open? That's a good question.
It's probably
I couldn't tell you.
95, 96, if I had to guess. Like,
I wonder what a Hot Topic in the 90s would have been like.
I think it was even more of like the bondage pants and like the gothy aesthetic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think
it probably would have been a pretty cool place when it first opened.
They started in 88.
Whoa.
Interesting.
I want to see a Hot Topic in 1988.
Is it just like full of like Susie and the Banshees stuff?
I mean, I guess it would be...
Probably was like an independent store first.
Hair metal stuff.
Yeah, it's probably like full like butt rock late 80s like hair metal. A lot of Motley Crue stuff in there.
Oh yeah. I wonder. Oh, to be at a Hot Topic in 1988.
I mean, if I had a time machine,
that's where I'm going.
Pretty high on my list. 80s malls.
Back to Jawbreaker. I think one of the things that maybe makes this record as iconic as it is probably the album cover too.
So good.
It's like
it's their best album cover.
Yeah, it really is. Like that
By
cat
far.
is amazing. I even love the choices, like the colors, like the black and white photo with the seafoam green Jawbreaker and then the rust orange Unfun on the bottom. That's a good looking record. And even the picture itself is just a little blurry. It's not like it's definitely like an amateur photograph.
I'm going to talk just a little bit more shit about Jawbreaker, if that's all right. Yeah, I think all of their album covers, except for Unfun, just didn't age well. Like, they just, like, look dated and, like, I don't know. I don't really like them. Just, that sounds like such a bad take. I don't like them.
24 Hour Rage Therapy definitely looks like a 1994 album cover for sure.
Yeah, it's just very much they look like they look like when they were released, as opposed to Unfun, which literally could have been released anywhere and it would have looked good in like any time period.
I think like the vinyl version of Bivouac probably stands on its own a little bit, but even then it has that like
Got
What
the
is that?
weird rabbit skull.
with the topless lady on
Topless. Yeah, it's weird.
it look. You know what? And now that I think about it, it does kind of remind me of like a lot of the noise rock that was going on at this time.
Yeah.
So that would probably that makes sense.
You'd be like hard pressed to find an album that came out in 2021 with an album cover like that.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
just like not even just like the content, just like aesthetically how it looks. I don't know. It's a very like it's very for its time style.
Same with the Dear You cover. It's the front of a photo album, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's a scan too, or a photograph of one, which I feel like the 2000s would do that a lot too. Like a good Charlotte record probably has, like those photo album looking covers. Yeah, but the Unfun cover, hands down, easiest
Perfection.
album cover. It's got a cat on it. I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
you already
great
win
cat.
with that.
Great font, black and white, fucking sick. Just they killed it all around.
So
I would
was
like to know like how they picked that cover. I'd be really interested.
There's got to be a story out there. I just
There's
didn't
gotta be.
think to look far enough in. They have a credit for the photograph, and it's not one of them. It's someone else.
Hey man, can we have your cat picture?
It's gonna be parodied a lot in the future.
Yeah.
Look, I was reading through some stuff about this record, and I didn't realize that they broke up right after this record came out. They did a grueling 2-month tour where they said they had like 5 good shows and then like 25 terrible shows. And then by the time they got to Canada, which they had some dates up there, like Chris wasn't even speaking to Adam and Blake. So they got home and then just like broke up. And then I think it was Chris and Blake went back to New York.
Yeah.
To finish school. And then like Adam was like immediately like, "Oh no, we fucked up. We should get back together." And then it took Chris and Blake like getting back together in New York before they decided to come back and like reform.
I didn't know they broke up at all. Like, yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I've definitely read that before, which makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
They were rocky from the start. It's really no surprise that they broke up. And in fact, like, considering that makes it even more amazing that they reunited, because that was always like they'll never reunite. Like, it was just there was no way anyone could ever offer them enough money to reunite. Someone did,
Yeah.
but
Well, Jawbreaker loves money.
yeah, as we know, those
Yeah.
sellouts.
This famously greedy Jawbreaker.
I
mean-
mean, it's just like hilarious to watch them interact. Honestly, it's like I don't think you could find just like 3 people less suited to be in a band together. Personality wise,
They're so different.
It's so hard to watch them communicate. It's just it's real. Makes you genuinely do a bit of a cringe. Little like ooh.
If you like said you have to pick one of them to hang out with, I'm like, can I hang out with Adam? He seems
Yeah.
like
Definitely.
the most down to earth one. Chris seems
Dude.
cool in like a older punk dude way,
Yeah.
But I think Blake would be awful to hang out with.
I would never hang out with him.
I would follow Blake around. We don't have to actually interact. Like, because I can just imagine you meet up with him in San Francisco and you like get a beer at a bar and he just sits there and scribbles in his notebook. And then like you follow him as he walks around the city and he just like narrates the city of San Francisco to himself. Like,
It sounds like you thought about this. Have you
It
thought
just
about your
seems-
day with Blake before?
it just seems like he's never going to actually talk to you. Like, you'll
I was
just
just
hear
gonna
him
say-
talk.
I would just like think that like if I asked him a question or just said anything to him that he just like wouldn't respond. Like he just gives that kind of energy. Like he would just act like he didn't hear it.
Or just like one word answers.
Yeah.
I would like
if it requires more than one word, he just didn't hear it.
I want Blake Schwarzenbach and Henry Rollins to go on a road trip together and see what happens, because I don't think they would have a good time.
They do have like very similar energies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Henry
Very
has
much
an
so.
intensity They're both very intense, though.
Yeah.
Blake's intensity seems to be more internal,
Yeah.
whereas Henry Rollins is a little more external. But same energy still.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely like the extrovert versus the introvert.
Yeah.
Of the same personality type. And one likes to work out a lot more, too.
Yeah.
And then, the history of Jawbreaker goes on, release multiple genre-defining albums throughout the rest of the 90s. They break up. They start other projects. Blake would do Jester Brazil, Thorns of Life, Forgetters. He would be a college professor, a bartender, a barista. He got arrested that one time and then never talked about why he got arrested.
Oh.
And then, I think that's why Jawbreaker got back together, because he needed money for his legal problems.
Should I listen to Jets to Brazil? Is that worth doing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will certainly check that out. There are a few Jets to Brazil tracks on the Husker Du playlist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris would later go play in Reviver, Shorebirds, and Mutoid Men with Matty Joe Canino from Latterman. And Adam played in J Church briefly, and a band called California with Jason White from Pinhead Gunpowder. And then, of course, the reunions happen. Were you able to see any of the reunions, or you just missed them?
Yeah, I just missed them. Jawbreaker wasn't even really on my radar at that point, as in having listened to them. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. But at the same time, I feel like I wouldn't have really appreciated it fully. Kind of yeah. If I was to see him during that, I wouldn't have appreciated it as much as I would now. But still would have been sick.
Yeah. It's not fun going to a show if you're not familiar with the band too. It can be fun, but it's more fun if you're a fan.
Oh, for sure.
It's definitely less appealing too if it's this is clearly a paycheck reunion. I enjoyed seeing Jawbreaker the 2 times that I saw them, but it is what it is. That it's playing the hits, making money.
Yeah.
And they had fun and they were enjoyable to watch. But yeah, it would certainly have not been nearly as enjoyable to me if I had not already had been a fan of them and listened to their records so much for a decade. If I was just hey, they're a pretty good band. I've heard a couple records. I'm gonna go spend $50 on a Hollywood show. That'd be a weird vibe.
If you're really into a band and the whole time you're listening to them, everyone is saying this band will never play another show. It doesn't even matter if it's a cash grab. That shit is sick. If you get to see that, for sure. Yeah, I get that. I just really missed the boat on Jawbreaker, man. I mean, well, I missed the boat by 7 years just from not being alive anyway, but still. I think, if I had found them in high school, that would have given me enough time to be really mad they were broken up and then really psyched about their reunion. So I missed that boat.
I'm always jealous of those people who had a cool High School Musical listening experience,
every time I listen to High School Musical, it's cool.
Yeah, right. That's sick. But I've got friends who are yeah, I listened to Jawbreaker and Bikini Kill when I was in high school, and I'm fuck, I was listening to Christian third wave ska and bad metalcore in high school.
Yeah, even the more credible music that we listened to was just drone or
extreme
I don't know, lots of doom and black metal and stuff that I'm just not into anymore at all. And so I can't even look back on that stuff fondly. It's just kind of I guess that's cool to someone else that a 17-year-old, was listening to soon. But Earth, I don't know. But to me now, I'm just eh.
Well, unless anyone has anything else to say about Unfun, I guess we could wrap things up.
All I have to say is that it's a good record. Yeah, straight up, good ass record. Jawbreaker rips. It holds up. Yeah, that record could have been released well, what's funny is so I've been playing this record a bunch and listening to it around my girlfriend and stuff, and she just assumed that Jawbreaker was a band that's out currently, just another DIY band. She was oh yeah, you guys should play a show with these guys, I was like, oh, no.
You're like, sure, I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be cool. No, yeah. So it really holds up. The record really holds up, I think. Like how like 31 years later, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's a good record.
Yeah, it'll be 31 in May. I think I figured out that it came out in May.
Yeah, I had a hard time trying to figure that out too.
I
Nobody's
found
good
a
month.
I found a press release that said it was due out in May. So who knows if it actually came out. So
Well, they did the tour in the summer, so
Yeah.
it probably was out.
yeah, slightly older than me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed looking at this record that I'm very familiar with a more critical lens, and especially revisiting this record after we've been doing this show for a while and being able to place this in a different current of punk from this time period. Like listening to it now, I heard so much more of like Dag Nasty and like Naked Ray Gun, whereas in the past I've always thought of them more in like a pop punk lane or similarities to like Leatherface or Husker Du. But I could hear more of the angularity of like post-hardcore, definitely what Fugazi was doing at this time. What Fuel, that Fuel record that came out in the same year, very much in the same lane. So yeah, learned something new.
I kind of regrew an appreciation for this record because it was the last one I always would rank as far as the Jawbreaker albums. So like I re-listening to it again, I was like, hell yeah, this A-side fucking rips. Like all these songs are great on the side A. And the B-side, I'm like, these are solid, but they're not like standout tracks. But yeah,
Just gotta
like,
shuffle.
Yeah, that's
Shuffle. The shuffle saves that album.
Well, tell everyone where to follow you online, where to get Magazine Beach, music, and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. So we're, on all the streaming services on Bandcamp. We have tapes out on the Knife Punch Records web store. On Twitter, which is what we use most, but we still don't really use it very much. We're not like a big social media band, but we still put the important stuff up there. On Twitter, we're Magazine Beans. And I think that might be Beans with a Z, but it might also be Beans with an S. You can probably find us. And then on Instagram, it's Magazine Beach DC. And that's all of our profiles around the world.
And I'll include links to that in the show notes. And lastly, we ask all of our guests to shout out a charity or a nonprofit that they'd like us to direct attention to. We say this because we think punk rock should be used as a tool to help those in need and
definitely
speak for people who don't get spoken for very often. So, any in particular that you like?
Nothing specific as much as just wherever you're at and wherever you're hearing this from, there's probably mutual aid, opportunities in your community. And that, in my opinion, is just the best way to consistently make sure your time or your money is just going to like help people immediately who need it, in your community. And it can do some like really great things. So yeah, take some time to look into mutual aid wherever you're at for sure.
Yeah,
It's
we
super
like
easy.
to give pretty regularly to our mutual aid Phoenix, and there's definitely some community organization in your city that you can contribute to. I do want to mention we're recording this the night after this episode's obviously going up a few weeks after this event, but the night after the police swept the homeless encampment in Echo Lake Park. That's been on my mind today. I've seen a lot of reports about that. Give to your homeless community with money. Honestly, just
For sure.
someone asks you for money, give them money. Don't worry about it. Obviously, there's city council members that you should be pestering about what they can do organizationally and structurally. But there are homeless people in your city that really, really need your help.
Yeah. You can do like a lot. You can help a lot of people just by like starting to carry cash. Like simple as that, it can make a big difference to a lot of people for sure.
Look into hotline numbers for mental health services that are not police who can respond to emergency situations. When you see people out on the street having a mental health crisis.
Yeah, punk rock to me is supposed to be about improving ourselves and helping out others in need. So we should definitely do that.
For sure.
But thank you so much for being on the show with us. This was a lot of fun.
This was sick. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah.
This was super fun just doing the interview, and I gained a record that I now love, and now know better than I ever would have known it, I'm sure. And yeah, thank you guys for that. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.